Thank you and good afternoon. Smart cities, a tech topic that is not exactly as hyped as AI, but 10 years ago it was right up there. And the advantage of talking about a technology that has been around for a few years is that we actually now have real facts of what's working and what's not working. We don't just need to speculate on what might happen. So that's what I'll do in the next little bit less than 10 minutes. I will talk about what exactly is the potential of smart city solutions to improve citizens' life, and in particular, how inclusive have those benefits been? How equally have they been shared? I hope that you will take a few ideas of what exactly we can do to improve and make technology work more inclusively in cities from the examples in particular that I'll share. But let's start from the beginning. What do we mean by smart cities? I suspect we have as many definitions as we have people in this room. The way we define smart cities is that if you have the existing city base and you add an intelligent layer of data and allow people to make better decisions, how much better off we would be. So let's take, we have the physical and human infrastructure. We add connected cell phones and sensors that create a flow of data into apps and tools that allow both citizens and city folks make better decisions. So for example, if you decide, for example, to check the traffic and see that it's too congested and wait for a later time to move, you have just now decided to take one car away from a busy time on a commute. Or if you, for example, are working for a transit organization and you see an alert of a maintenance needed, you might take care of that right away and avoid a broken metro car or a bus that would actually delay a lot of people's transit and create even a bottleneck in the traffic. And when you add millions of these small choices that basically just change how people behave, you can make cities much more efficient and make the quality of life better for folks in many ways. The question is, of course, how much bang for the buck do you get? How much better would people's lives get? And that's something we did at the McKinsey Global Institute in our last report. We looked at the 60 applications across a broad range of tools, from mobility to healthcare, environmental sustainability, community applications, etc. And so how do they actually translate into differences in people's quality of life in cities? And what did we find? They do make a big difference. They can save lives, improve security, make people more connected, even make air more clean. Across a broad range of outputs that citizens care about, we estimated that you can get between 10 to 20% improvements, which actually are pretty substantial in many cases. So take, for example, transit. A big city with a metro system can use online, basically real-time transit information, where exactly the cars are, predictive maintenance, digital payment, so that you can very quickly transit from one mode to another, to save up to 15% of time. And when you think about in a large city, 15% of a, let's say, average 40-minute transit one way can translate into more than 2 days of transit time saved a year per every commuter. So that's a pretty dramatic change simply by avoiding some of the unnecessary delays, people waiting for cars, etc. Another example is water. If you give information about actual consumption and have the right kind of pricing to encourage people to conserve, and if you, on the other hand, have the tools of quickly identifying leaks in water so that you can address them very fast, you can save up to 25 to 80 liters of water per day per person. Just think about that, how much that adds up and reduces our need to expand water provision capacity. So all of that across the board, when we looked at the full range of applications, the potential impact is quite significant on improving quality of life, less so of actually creating economic development or jobs. I mean, that is not, becoming a smart city is not an economic development strategy, which many cities wish it would be. However, the question is, how equally are those benefits distributed? Do all citizens benefit equally? And the answer is honestly no. Smart cities don't need to be inclusive unless the cities specifically think that they make it so. So for example, if you have applications that are expensive or only available in wealthy neighborhoods, that can actually perpetuate inequality. On the other hand, you can have cities that make it a priority to use technology to address some of the underserved communities. That can be a very different story. And there are some solutions that actually tend to disproportionately favor those people who are disadvantaged. So improved transit tends to help those folks who live far away, have low transits, who tend to be the lower income households. And in a way, a better transit system, for example, adding on-demand buses that kind of bridge between missing public transit already, can make a difference disproportionately to those people who start with the more difficult transit situation. But cities can do a lot better. They can actually proactively reach to some of the underserved neighborhoods, people with disabilities, folks who have special needs or who might be at risk, higher risk than others. So let me give you a few examples. The New York Public Outreach Program, for example, is an interagency integrated system where they use analytics to identify folks who might be in need of public services, but they are not currently reaching them, and they have a door-to-door program to go and look for those folks. In Helsinki, Finland, the public social services unit uses transit information to optimize the routes of people who do home visits, to reduce the time they spend in transit and maximize the time they can spend with all of their customers. The Dublin-based Address the Unaddressed in Kolkata has provided geolocation address to 20,000 households in 13 different unregistered neighborhoods that allows them to actually have a legal presence and get the biometric identity that allows them to vote and get a number of different kinds of social services. So there's a lot that the specific targeted outreach can do. And there are folks that actually consistently get ignored on many of the smart city solutions. Take people with disabilities. They tend to have a much harder time navigating the very complex urban environments. I mean, and they typically are not at the top of the priority list when you are doing urban design solutions, for example. Yet, technology can help. One of my favorite examples is Wayfinder from the London Tube, where basically visually impaired folks can use their cell phones that identifies exactly where they are on the network, and they get very precise audio instructions on how to go from one transit station to the other, how to navigate the very winding roads and the elevators, as anyone who has been there knows. Or in Singapore, they have in the traffic crossing places, you have a Green Man Plus. So if you have a disability or senior card, you can basically tap it on the place where you push the button for getting a green man to have you cross, and you get more time to cross. So you actually are protected from the cars that are rushing around. So that's another example of being more thoughtful about how the city is to navigate. The last example I give about is the older citizens. When we looked at and surveyed the usage of smart city solutions across 50 cities, the leading smart cities, I think the people who talk about it and we hear about, we surveyed 400 people in each one of these, and it was pretty clear that there was a clear negative correlation between the usage of smart city solutions and age. Older folks tended to use those solutions less. And there is clearly something that we can do a lot more, whether it's in healthcare, providing at-distance consultation, tele-rehab, so you don't need to move and go to a place, whether you can have monitoring of your healthcare areas. We can have matching services for specifically for those folks who are at home, probably potentially retired, and they can still use their skills in more ad hoc manner. And you can have even social connectivity applications that can cut across generations. Some of the senior communities in the Midwest, for example, they have a English language program with Brazilian teenagers, and they can actually communicate with them in English and help train the Brazilian teenagers while having a connection to a generation that they wouldn't otherwise have. So all of these examples, I hope, just show that it doesn't necessarily mean that smart solutions are going to serve for everyone. It means that if you put your heart into it, you can really target and make a big difference for many different kinds of folks. Thank you.